Hello and welcome to the Marketplace Risk virtual event series. I'm Heather, event specialist here at Marketplace Risk. Today we welcome speakers from EverC. Our virtual events are designed to help marketplaces and digital platforms successfully navigate complex trust and safety, risk, compliance, and legal subject matter so they can avoid distractions in order to focus on launching and scaling successfully. Be sure to check out marketplacerisk.com to access hundreds of hours of content, including recordings from previous conferences and summits, on-demand virtual events, our platform podcast, and to subscribe to our newsletter where we keep you up to date on everything, including the 2025 Marketplace Risk Conference in Austin and the 2025 Marketplace Risk Conference in San Francisco. If you are interested in sponsoring or speaking at the conference, you can visit our website to access sponsorship opportunities and find the call for speakers submission form. We'd love to see you there. Before I hand things over to today's presenters, I want to cover a few housekeeping items. First, this virtual event is being recorded, so the recording will be available for you to access on demand at marketplacerisk.com. Second, all attendees have listening capabilities only and are otherwise muted. And third, submit your questions via the control panel, and if we have time, we will answer as many as we can. If we do not get to your question, please feel free to email us at info@marketplacerisk.com, and we will get your questions answered. With that, I will turn things over to EverC.
Thank you so much, Heather, for that wonderful introduction. We're really excited to be here today. My name is Aileen McDonough, and I am Director of Content here at EverC. And I just wanted to start by telling you a brief, tiny bit about EverC and then introducing our awesome speaker, Anna. What we do at EverC, we are mission-driven to disrupt illicit activity on the web and ensure a safer digital commerce ecosystem. And what does that mean? We have incredible AI-powered solutions, and we analyze vast data sets to produce those insights that you need and intelligence that you need to make sure that marketplaces, payment providers, and acquiring banks can mitigate risk while optimizing for efficiency and growth. And in the end, it's all about growth. That's what we are about. We're very excited to be here today, and just want to hand it off to Anna. Anna, if you want to bring up your next slide, I can talk a little bit about you. She is our senior risk strategist. And if you want to know anything about marketplaces at any time, she is the expert. And today, Anna is going to be talking about how to use Fintechs and the model that they have used to approach risk as a template for your own marketplace risk management strategy. So with that, and I just wanted to let everyone know, please do submit questions. We love questions. We are going to hold them to the end, but we will answer as many as we can. So thank you, and take it away, Anna.
Thank you so much, Aileen. Hi, everyone. I'm very glad to be here today, and we are going to talk about risk management for marketplaces and redefining it, because one of the things that is happening in the last several years, what we're seeing, everybody, is the explosive growth of marketplaces. I mean, marketplaces themselves are growing. Where they were 5 years ago, where Amazon was, eBay, take any of them, they became much, much bigger and taking so much more space in people's, what people doing online and how people buying things in their life. And also new marketplaces are coming into the market all the time. Even every platform, every social platform nowadays wants to have a marketplace, and Facebook, who was just a social platform, became a very, very successful marketplace. And the ones that people thought cannot be challenged, like everybody thought that Amazon cannot be challenged, but then Temu comes and very, very successfully challenges this. So we're seeing it all over the place. We see how big it becoming, and the reason for this I think, first of all, obviously COVID. It started then because the world went online and started changing the way they are behaving and the way they are buying things. But even before that, if we're not talking specifically about marketplaces that are consumer good marketplaces, the shared economy started even a little bit before. If we remember Airbnb and marketplaces and platforms for work, for jobs like Fiverr or Upwork, they started a little bit before, but obviously COVID made it so much bigger. And at the same time, with the growth of the marketplaces, the regulatory field is changing almost as quickly. Meaning, again, 5 years ago, from the self-view of many marketplaces of, okay, I'm a mere platform, I'm just connecting buyers and sellers, and I'm not responsible for who they are and what are they bringing. And governments and regulators were sharing that view. It moved now to, as many of you probably know, moved to increased responsibility being laid on the marketplaces themselves. I mean, if a marketplace is operating in 2025, the compliance is no longer about just facilitating transactions. It now involves active responsibility for seller verification, responsibility for product safety, algorithmic fairness, ethical supply chain oversight even. And the trend suggests that it will become even more stringent. Additional regulations are being added almost all the time. AI regulation is raising in Europe and in US as well. There are discussions about it, constant ones. So AI regulation will definitely become more stringent and will be very relevant for marketplaces in the near future. A lot of talks about sustainability requirements, how marketplaces will be responsible for sustainable supply chains and ethical supply chains. It's all being placed on marketplaces. And why? I mean, why all of a sudden so many regulators are so interested in laying all of these responsibilities on the marketplaces? I see 3 reasons for that. First of all, obviously, the sheer volumes of everything that is happening there. I mean, if your marketplace is responsible for half of online purchases in the country, or when there's literally billions of people that are interacting with it daily, then your government is, kind of want to have some oversight on this. And when they're looking at the decentralized economy of the platforms, practically the only stable entity that they can interact with and chase after if they need to is the platform itself. Because of that, and because the platform is the only stable environment, in that the platforms themselves are starting to recognize their own strength in facilitation and of this economy, and in the instilling trust for all the parties involved, in trust of buyers, trust of sellers. And because of that, marketplaces are starting to build up their own brands. And that leads inevitably leads everybody, buyers, public officials, to recognize them as a responsible party for what is happening there. But the third reason, and this is why I am here today, is proliferation of fraud. Marketplaces become victims of fraudsters, because fraudsters flock to where there are people, and fraudsters flock to where there are money. and marketplaces is that. And fraudsters need places where there's not much of an oversight. And even with all these new regulations, they are just coming in, they are just being discussed. So not so much of an oversight currently exists on the marketplaces for people who want to do bad things there. So marketplaces are it for fraudsters. And the fraud grows with the same and with the same speed and maybe even faster than the marketplaces themselves. And when I'm looking at it and when I'm thinking about it, one thing that it reminds me of is what was happening with fintechs. Because I am myself used to work for fintech companies as a risk strategist as well, and seeing what was happening there, say about 10 years ago. Sorry. If we will look at the decade, like I would say that 2010s were the decade of the fintechs, because before that, there were practically no one. There was maybe PayPal, there were banks, people were using banks for all of their financial needs. And then they started popping up almost every year, a lot of them. And by the way, the fact that they were growing at those years, that was also something that was enabling the growth of the marketplaces and the platforms, because they were able to move money across borders, and marketplaces were able to start bringing sellers or other offerings from all over the world. So they were so there was this burst, and the same thing that is now happening with marketplaces was happening to fintechs around regulations. So from like timid, very, very timid first acts that government was doing without really understanding who are they talking to. Are you a bank? No. You transferring money around the world, so you like Western Union. So they really didn't know how to go about it. In 5 years, it was a very robust regulatory network that was covering very, very targeted covering of all the aspects of the operations of the fintechs: email compliance, customer protection, data security, fees. A lot of it was put on the fintechs by then, and I would say that they navigated that very, very well. With the growth that they were experiencing at the time, and with all of this, they were adjusting their approach to risk, to compliance, to fraud pretty well, and were able to protect their own businesses this way. How did they do it? They became proactive. And when I'm saying proactive, I mean, it started very much in reactive. Okay, the first thing that everybody care about, and I'm seeing it obviously in marketplaces now, and it's still a very important part of all the operations. First, we think about chargebacks. Okay, there are chargebacks. So we got a chargeback, or we got a payment that was recalled by bank, or we got a subpoena. So we have to do something about it. We react to it, and it's a very reactive response. And while a company is looking for how to cover their fraud and risk, these were the first things everybody were concerned about and were covering. Then becomes the next step in this thing is not actually being really and truly proactive, is something that I call being proactively reactive. I mean, okay, now we got 100 of chargebacks for this particular trend. So we figured out there is a trend, so we will start monitoring for this and protect ourselves from this particular chargebacks, or auditors are asking us about something, how we missed it, how did it even happen that we missed such a thing. So I guess we should not miss it again, because we don't want to answer those questions again. Regulators are telling us, you actually have to care about this. You have to care about crypto. You have to care about other violations. So we create some rules, we create some, I don't know, some coverage for this, and so on. But then when fraud and compliance people start to become truly proactive, because there were so many things going on, and people were learning, and they were looking around, and they started thinking in the terms of reviewing every product line, reviewing every single offering the company has, every new development that the company is planning to do, sitting down and reviewing it with an eye of a bad guy. Okay? If I'm a fraudster, if I'm a bad guy, how can I abuse that? There is this way to move the money. How can I abuse it? There is this way to move the products. What can I do about it to gain some illicit things around it? And when we're thinking about it this way, we start thinking, okay, which checks, which balances do I need to install into that new product offering, into that new market expansion, into this new promotion that my company is doing? How do I introduce some checks and balances that on one hand will allow good customers use it without problems, but at the same time will make it difficult for and as possibly as difficult as possible for the fraudsters, because you can never make fraudsters disappear completely. You can never come to a point when they just don't do anything bad. What you can do when you think about it and when you build your risk strategies, you can make performing fraud on your particular platform so difficult that they will just go someplace else where it's much easier for them and they don't have to work that hard. Because one of the reasons I think people go to do fraud is because they don't want to work that hard. They want to make money. So if we're looking at how it's been done, these risk strategies, how we should go about it, the first thing that probably needs to be done is to acquaint yourself with the different fraud typologies that you may encounter on your platform. And when we're thinking about platforms, when we're thinking about marketplaces, it becomes a little bit more difficult than in some other cases, because you always have to look at both sides. You have buyers and you have sellers, and both of them, unfortunately, can come to your platform, can come to your marketplace to do bad things. Let's just have a quick look at what can be there. Let's start with sellers. And sellers and buyers, they can actually work against also different parties of all of these transactions. So sellers can do fraud against buyers, against other sellers, or against your own platform, the platform itself. Same with buyers. So seller fraud against buyers. Examples, it's not a full list, it's almost a full list, but still not. And I'm sure if you would be looking for things and at your own platform, you might find some additional things that I did not include here. But here, okay. sellers can offer counterfeit product listings. That's the first thing that comes to mind when we're thinking about seller fraud. Counterfeit luxury that was mentioned is a very, very big fraud right now. Loses everybody a lot of money. Selling fake items, luxury items, the drugs, anything, basically anything can be counterfeited and sold. Brushing scams. Brushing scams means that seller takes a product that nobody buys and just send them somewhere to some buyer that they know about. Maybe it's somebody that bought with them before, or somehow they encounter their details. They just send this unsolicited products to buyers, and it looks like a fake sale on the platform. And this way, they are able to represent themselves as those buyers and inflate their own reviews. It's called brushing scams. Big butchering scams. I hope actually that everybody in the industry already knows what pig butchering scams are. But in short, for those who still don't know, it's a crypto scam when fraudsters contact people, usually virtually. They find their victims, they start chatting with them, they start building relationships with them. Then they, in most cases, they persuade those people to invest in crypto, even though it's not real crypto platforms, but they show them earnings and they even let them withdraw some funds until the victim puts in enough money, big enough amounts of money, that they just steal it and disappear. And because it's crypto, it's very easy for them to steal it, and it's very hard to acquire those money back. And this is why it's called pig butchering, because they work on the victim, you know, to inflate the amount of money that they can get out of them. Unfortunately, it started just on the social platforms, but now they are looking for those victims everywhere. And your platform, if you're a marketplace or just a platform that connects people, can be abused by these fraudsters as well. Deepfakes and synthetic identities. Obviously, everybody's doing their KYCs and their KYBs, and if we're talking about sellers against buyers, then they can create accounts that will not be, nobody will be able to find later on, chase and return anything that they fraudulently acquired from buyers. And misrepresentations in listings. It's when they place a listing, they place a product in a way that buyer doesn't understand what they really buy, and get something that is completely different than what they thought is being advertised. Seller fraud against the platform, something that is specifically tailored by them to defraud the marketplaces themselves. Tax evasion schemes is when seller registers as a domestic business to avoid VAT and sales taxes, and again, synthetic identities help with them a lot. And continuing with this, I would mention digital document forgery as well, because sellers are the ones that interact with the platform on a daily basis. A lot of them, they know a lot of ins and outs of what is happening with the marketplace itself, so they can actually use phishing and social engineering to get data or get gains from the marketplace itself. Or one of the other things that is mentioned here, use marketplace infrastructure as for fraud operations in fraud as business, as service, because it's very good for a fraudster to have such an infrastructure that is built already so nicely for people to meet each other, for products to exchange hands, for money to exchange hands, so they can abuse it for their own purposes. And the last thing is seller fraud against other sellers. There's review bombing, when sellers leave fraudulent negative reviews to damage competitors. We've watched some of this. Obviously, there's price manipulation, algorithm gaming, when they inflate, deflate prices to hurt competitors. Again, brush and scams could work against other sellers as well. And with for these negative reviews, for the price manipulation, for other types of fraud, a lot of bad sellers would do multi-accounting and sock puppeting, so use multiple accounts to create fake demand, undercut other sellers, and work on that. Quickly, let's talk about buyer fraud, because these guys also do things to marketplaces. Again, sellers, one of the huge problems in the e-commerce right now is return and refund and friendly chargeback fraud. Is a lot of marketplaces and a lot of standalone merchants are facing it when they're selling in good faith. They are selling products to customers, and then customers say they didn't get it, even though they got it. And instead of the return, they send an empty boxes, they send counterfeit products sometimes, claim non-delivery, or just don't return anything, but dispute the transactions. And a lot of money are being lost in the industry right now because of this. Buyers also do phishing, social engineering. If we're talking about buyers against platform, the most favorite thing probably that buyers do, sellers do that sometimes too. Coupon, promotional abuse, affiliate, referral fraud. Basically, this is a rule of the industry. If you have promotions, if you have coupons, if you have affiliate bonuses, any type of bonuses, somebody will definitely be abusing it. So you would need to keep an eye on it, because sometimes company can lose a lot of money on just paying, even if it's, I don't know, $20 referral bonus for somebody. There are places in this world, and we spoke about it, that everything became global. Now there are places in this world where $20 is a lot of money that can buy a lot of food for a family. So people would go to incredible lengths to get this money and to get those bonuses, as many of them as possible. The buyers also participate in fake reviews and seller manipulations. Sometimes buyers contact, like they are, since they're able to find other buyers on the same platform, they can try to engage with them in different frauds and pig butchering using deepfake identity. Well, and obviously account takeover fraud is something that ever present everywhere, and buyers' accounts are the most vulnerable for this, because they, in many cases, they have saved financial information, credit card information, something where fraudsters can grab money from and use it. So account takeover is something that obviously everyone remembers about. But when we're talking about covering for this, when we're talking about how to build a risk strategy, our strategy against fraud, if it comes to buyers, in many cases, marketplaces, they don't often have a lot of information about buyers, about, yeah, buyers. Regardless if you're a service marketplace or a product marketplace, sometimes you have an email, sometimes email IP, sometimes payment details, as I said, could be stored. Sellers, on the other hand, these are the entities there that are fully registered with the marketplace, that have a lot of interactions with the platform, and on the prolonged um, prolonged in time interactions as well. Of course, if the platform is a type of a platform with when both parties require full registration, like I don't know, vacation rentals, for example, then whatever I'm going to be talking about sellers could be used for both sides of this. Sellers are the ones who are making the marketplaces, but sellers are the ones who can break them too, because, as I mentioned, since they interact with the marketplace so much, they know the processes pretty intimately. So it's better to get to know them too. How to approach the mapping of a potential abuse? The first thing that I believe needs to be done in this case is to gather, we're talking about sellers for now, gather all the information about all the sellers that have indications that they're doing something bad. Here are some suggestions. So all the information about chargebacks that you have, canceled transactions for different reasons, if you have fraudulent reasons to that indicate canceled transactions, or any other reason you decide not to honor it, it relates to sellers as well. Sellers that are being terminated on the platform, sellers that are being suspended on the platform, sellers that are being reported, and reported could be for many different reasons. It could be because authorities reported somebody, or brands sometimes, if they issue a TRO against specific brand, it usually involves specific sellers. It could be sellers that are reported by the buyers for different reasons. So it could be based on the reviews, on the feedback from the buyers. Since we're, for example, a vendor, vendors also report sellers. If vendors seeing that something that they're classify for example, seems to be fraudulent, it's obviously being reported to the client. So this is also the types of signals that can be collected for this. Sellers that failed KYC or KYB could be significant too. When you have product removals, if you have them, you can collect the sellers that were exposed to that. Or if a marketplace, a lot of marketplaces nowadays doing authentication to the products, if they're selling luxury items, if they're selling popular items, then in many cases, or very expensive ones, in many cases they are being sent for authentication. And if the failed authentication, then it's also something that you can collect as a data set of sellers that are involved in something that you should not be wanting to see on your marketplace. And once you gathered all of this, this is your research ground. This is your testing ground too. So one thing that needs to be done after that is you start gathering data, and as much of it as possible. So sellers can be looked at from different perspectives. There's registration data. It's very important. Obviously, seller type, ID country. I mean, during KYC, they provide the documents if they're a company, or they provide their IDs if they're personal information. Countries and mismatches between them is usually very important. Gives a lot of information about what's happening. So any country that you can include into your data analysis: ID country, IP country, country where in the product data, the inventory location. You should gather all this: dates, registration date, status of the KYC, line of business, in terms of if, for example, there are different types of things that the platform offers, then it should be important to know upfront. If you're able to ask them, like, what kind of products or what kind of services you are planning to offer on the platform. If you gather this information upfront, it's nice to then compare to what is actually happening. If there is a access to withdrawal method details, not always it's exposed to the marketplace, but this is a place where marketplace can talk to vendors. And I know that a lot of vendors that are in the fintech space, for example, are very happy to join efforts, and share this information in some way that is not, not doing anything about the data privacy, but at the same time, they can support the fraud fight here. And connected accounts, internal, external, if as in our case, for example, one of the things that we have is a graph database of different bad actors that we encounter when we work in the industry. And this is something that can be also provided to our clients if we know about this particular merchant, this particular seller, if we are aware that they are involved in a bad activity elsewhere. Other merchants, other vendors are also able, in many cases, provide some information about connected accounts outside of your platform. Product data, taxonomy, meaning if you collected line of business, then what type of products they are actually putting on the marketplace becomes an interesting piece of information. Location of the inventory, how many products, how many they sold, how many they hold, different prices, because sometimes prices could be too low, they could be too high, they could be very, very uniform, they could be very unreasonable. Should be very good indication of things going wrong. Product reviews, as I mentioned, ratings, removed products, better look at them per policy, I would say, because sometimes some policies start falling out if there are policies that the marketplaces are very much concerned about. I don't know, counterfeits, for example. They might not remember that there are additional products that being removed, maybe not a lot of them, but there could be significant violations in this case. And payments data, in terms of over time, once you getting payments, again, since they're sellers, you have pay in payments when sellers are being paid, and then you have withdrawals as well when sellers withdraw their earnings, and all of this is very significant as risk red flags. So once this data is gathered, as much of it and as clean of it as possible, there are two things that can be done with it. The first one, you can gather all of it, give it to data analysts. So they will sift through it, look for trends, look for something that is happening there, and then bring those insights to the business people, to the operational people, to the risk people, to the trust and safety team, and suggest a mitigation plan for this. The other way to deal with it is give all of this data to data scientists. So they will feed it, and this is where that like bunch of sellers, bad sellers that you gathered and you know about them, this is where they will be very, very useful as a test data set, because there could be models that can be built to assess the risk of different sellers. And then once they're working, again, business people, operational people, and risk people can gather together and think of how are they going to install it in which places of the life cycle of the seller on the platform where it could be put in order to mitigate those problems that we just talked about. Obviously, the first thing that everybody thinks about where to check for fraud is onboarding. It's very important to check as much as possible at the time when the seller is just onboarding on the platform, to assess the compliance risk, assess the initial risk assessment in general, to see what we're dealing with, who needs to be thrown away immediately and just not let on the platform, who needs to be sent to which flow, because sometimes you have a happy flow, sometimes you have a less happy flow for the sellers. So based on the risk that you could be seeing they may present, you might decide how to treat them initially, and also like put it aside to look later on, sometime later, because the riskier they are, the more often you want to look at them. One of the things that should be done, in my opinion, is returning fraud check, because if the fraudsters like a place, even if they're getting kicked out, they always try to come back. So building some measures to not let them come back, this is a very good way to make it very, very hard for them, so they will go elsewhere. And one of the things that a lot of people sometimes, for some reason, don't think about when they're thinking about risk assessment and fraud assessment is that actually, when you're doing it, you are able to unlock some business opportunities that you might not be able to find any other way. Because essentially, looking for fraud patterns is looking for something weird, looking for something that is not ordinary. And sometimes that not ordinary way of working on the platform, sometimes it's fraud, but sometimes it's something that is not very well covered by the regular flow of the platform, and people have to adjust themselves in order to make their business well on that platform. They're not doing anything bad, it's just not very comfortable for them. So if um, if somebody is able to catch that and reach out and suggest some ways to do business better, sometimes it unlocks a lot of interesting opportunities. Something that I've heard several times from people in the industry, that when we're talking about monitoring of the sellers, one of the things that EverC is doing, we monitor for product safety, for illicit products. And a lot of people I've heard saying, but why? If we check them well enough during the sign up, why there is a need for monitoring? And there is always a need to monitor, because there's no way to know everything up front. A lot of them, because we talked about it, that there are deep fakes, there are synthetic identity, they might just misrepresent themselves, and it will not be possible to catch on the onboarding stage. And it will only start surfacing when they are performing transaction on the platform, when they placing their listings, their service offerings, by comparing the data to what supposed to be a normal flow for this. to what is actually happening, this is a place where it's actually easier to see who's a good seller and who's actually a bad seller. And during monitoring, monitoring is very good for portfolio management. This is something I believe trust and safety team should keep it very, very close to their heart, because in many cases we're seeing that the teams are working a little bit disjointedly. So teams that are monitoring listings, they living in their own universe, and teams that are looking at sellers, they look at something else. And there is a team that is doing business, that is bringing new sellers to the platform, and this team in some cases doesn't talk to trust and safety enough, or trust and safety don't ask them enough questions. This is something that should be done, I believe. Portfolio management, risk portfolio management is something that trust and safety team should try to build. Monitoring obviously would stop things for escalation for review, could go to a separate team. It helps with chargeback and ATO prevention, and also uncovers additional business opportunity. We talked about it before. And this is the strategy, more or less. Obviously, it's very, very much not simple to build that, and I can't pass all of this, even in a 1 hour long webinar. But these are just some small tips that a lot of people who are watching this probably know all of this. Some of you might not know something, so I hope that it's something that you can take to the teams and start thinking about, because it's really pays off to be proactive in terms of risk and fraud, because it actually enables the business to grow safely, to grow in a safe space, and to grow sustainably. And this is what everybody wants. This is why trust and safety teams are working. This is why business is working. They want the business to grow. And also it allows the platform that is thinking proactively and moving proactively, it allows them to be ahead of their competition at the time when the new regulation hits. Because at that time, when everybody will be scrambling around trying to reactively think, okay, how are we going to cover this new thing? The proactive team already thought about it upfront and already built this system of checks and balances. Eileen, that's all from
Hello.
me.
We had a couple questions come through, and so I just want to take just a minute to go over those. Once one of them is related to sort of the idea of fintechs being a model for marketplaces. Once upon a time, fintechs didn't really see themselves as having the responsibility to do the risk management because they were under the umbrellas of banks. Some marketplaces are still kind of in that, in that feeling of, well, I'm just a platform, like you said. So what would you say to them about their responsibility to protect users or to protect their platform? Besides moral responsibility, which we all want to believe we have, but what else could go wrong for a marketplace that's not protecting their platform?
As I said before, when customers are interacting with the platform, when regulators are looking at the market, e-commerce in general, they don't see anybody else but the platform. Nobody, I mean, of course, everybody knows that there are some sellers from all over the world that are actually putting those products or those services on the platforms. but still people are buying from Amazon, people are buying from eBay, people are interacting with Airbnb. So if the platform is not protected by the people who are on this platform, it will get hit, they will come after you and they will demand that you would do something. And we're seeing it all over the place. We're seeing regulators coming after all kinds of marketplaces and placing more and more responsibility on them. And the more proactively we're thinking or they are thinking about covering for this, the less they actually would have to do because they will build what they see needs to be built. And regulators, in many cases, they like that. They like discussing these things and saying, you know what your suggestion actually makes sense. We're gonna put that in the regulation.
That's good to know. And actually that answered the other question too. So that was perfect. I often say to people who are wondering about this, the last time you bought something on Amazon, you said to people, whether it worked or not, you bought it on Amazon. You didn't say, oh, I bought it for, Teddy Bears R Us 313, somewhere, who knows where. So, in the end, the platform is going to be the one that takes the reputational hit. So I think that's a good point. So I think with that, we can turn it back over to Heather. Thank you so much for coming, everyone. And we look forward to seeing this out on the web and being able to share this information even more.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Anna and Aileen, for a wonderful presentation. And thank you everyone for joining us today. As a reminder, check out marketplacerisk.com to access this recording along with past recordings and to subscribe to our email newsletter to stay up to date on all events and happenings. Have a wonderful rest of your afternoon and we'll see you soon.
Thank you all.